Oh. Hi everyone. Welcome
Hey.
to today's discussion. It's the Brown Girls in the Rain Book Club. This is my friend Anika. And I'm Sharanja. And yeah, today we're going to be discussing Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. That's the book right there.
Beautiful cover.
Beautiful cover. Gorgeous. And all right. So this story is, I would describe it as like an epic fantasy, kind of like in the reign of the Lord of the Rings. And it's set in 1920s Mexico during Mexico's Jazz Age. Like, I would describe it as a period of cultural, artistic, musical revolution. Hi, Greg. And our main character is Cassiopeia Tun. She's
Sharanja, you frozen?
the beginning of her grandfather, who very poorly. Casiopeia's mother married to the fact that he was, I believe, like, he had Mayan ancestry and he was a laborer, whereas Casiopeia's mother's side is more, I would say, like a Spanish European ancestry. So the second that Casiopeia's mother came to him and said, I'm in love with this man, he said, no, outright no, you cannot marry him. But due to love, she still married him anyway. And for the first few years of Casiopeia's life, she lived a very charmed childhood. She had a mother who loved her, a father who loved her. And I would say her father is the one who instilled in her the love for like books and adventure. But due to something tragic happening, he passes away, and Cassiopeia and her mother are forced to move back in with her grandfather, who essentially treats them like servants. They're like servants in their own
They're
house.
maids, essentially.
They're
Or
maids.
Cassiopeia as a maid.
Yeah, they have to basically live there as maids in order to stay there. And you can tell that this is not a lifestyle that Cassiopeia wants. She's someone who dreams big, who has like a zest for life, but unfortunately what she's getting at home is very, what would you say, like, it's not satisfying for her, especially when her biggest tormentor, I would say, is Martin, her cousin, who's like the heir of the household, and he really, really enjoys making that note to Cassiopeia that she's on a different level than him, on a lower level than him. He's an outright bully to her. Now, due to,
and don't forget, she's only enduring this because she's just trying to save up her money to go to the big city, to leave.
Yeah. So she's only enduring this so she can save up enough money to get her and her mother out of the household and live a separate life, an independent life in the big city. Now, something happens in the book early on where Martin, I can't remember what the exact incident was, but Martin and Cassiopeia get into it, and it goes back to her grandfather, and her grandfather basically says, you know what, this year you're not coming with us on the family trip. So
because she wouldn't shine his shoes. She
because
was
she wouldn't
doing
shine.
everything, and he just went and bothered her to be like, you have to shine my shoes.
Yeah, and she wouldn't shine his shoes. So that got back to her grandfather, and her grandfather said, you're staying at home. You're not coming with us to the beach that day. So as penance, she has to clean the whole house. And while she's cleaning her grandfather's bedroom, she stumbles across this locked ancient chest. And she somehow manages to open the chest, and inside the chest is the dismembered body parts of an ancient Mayan god, who just happens to be the Mayan god of death, Hunkame.
Yeah, his bones.
She awakens Hunkame, and the reason why Hunkame was trapped in the chest was because his twin brother, the Kame, essentially tricked him and removed him from his throne in the underworld. And so the subsequent part of the book is Hunkame and Cassiopeia, who was an unwilling participant throughout this adventure. It's her and him going on an adventure to sort of get all his remaining body parts and restore himself to the throne. It's an adventure of, it's about revenge, it's about falling in love,
it's about finding yourself.
It's a really, really good. So, Anika, I want to start off with asking you, what did you think about the book?
I think it was good. Like, I think it was good. It was a good tale of like representation for the Mexican or Hispanic population, I guess. And I liked how it was set in the 1920s, like during the Jazz age, because in their city that they were in, Ucamillo, is that what it was? Ucamillo. It's like the 1920s was like a new age, like with everything, like dancing, jazz, and everything. But their town was like just set in the past.
Like set in the past culturally too. Like I don't think like the girls were allowed to go out to go dancing.
The boys, like Martin, was allowed to do whatever he wanted, smoke out there, do whatever.
Yeah. I would almost say that the time and the setting of this story was almost like a character in and of itself. Like so much of the story is only interesting in part because of where it's taking place. And it's not something that we as readers are always aware of at the same time. How many times do we read a book and we just assume that it's taking place in
America,
like, North America, like in a big city like New York? So the fact that the author actually painstakingly made it aware that this is Mexico, that you're dealing with Latino characters, with Mayan characters, I thought it was really important. Hi, Sean.
Ain't no problem.
Ain't no problem. Only matters that you showed up. That's all.
Exactly. We just getting through the plot.
Anika, what did you think of Cassiopeia as a character?
I like that she stood up for herself, that regardless of Martin bullying her essentially, that she just didn't like take it. She always like stood up to him. And even like with her grandfather, like she knew he was a mean old man, and when he left for the thing, I like how she was stubborn enough, or stubborn's not even the word. She had enough like conviction in herself that she went and stole his key and opened up that chest.
Yeah, I like the fact that she didn't take things lying down. She was very like I don't want to say smart mouth, but she will talk back for sure. And I also
she kept her memory of her father alive and what he taught her, and that helped her propel through her life or through this journey.
Yeah, I also liked her sort of outlook on life. Like you could tell that it wasn't enough for her just to stay in that little town. Like she wanted to explore, she wanted to see what was out there for her. Hence the reason why she was saving money to go and live in the big city. Like you can feel that sort of like interest to journey out there in the way that she expressed herself. Like I want to go back to a quote that I think Hunkami said about her. Let me just find it.
For how Hunkame had so many names for her, like the Stone Lady.
The Stone Lady. So yeah, I think
what's her name mean? Her name's something to do with like the constellations of the stars.
It's a constellation. Cassiopeia is a constellation. And this is what he said about her while they were on the train, I think, traveling to their first
like kind of like when at the beginning of their journey.
Yeah. So he said, "Is that why you stare at the stars?" Because throughout the whole train ride, she was just like gazing out the window at the dark night sky. He said, "Is that why you stare at the stars?" He asked. Are you searching for beauty or dreaming with your eyes wide open? I'm like, this is such a romantic way to talk about someone daydreaming.
Especially coming from someone who's supposed to be the god of death. Wait, where'd you go? What? All right. I'm just in this alone now. Bet. Okay, so we're talking about Cassiopeia. So let me pull up. Oh shoot. Cassiopeia. Oh, Sharanja said she lost connection. Hold on.
Sorry, lost connection.
It's okay. I didn't say anything. I'm trying hard to figure out what I was trying to say about Cassiopeia. You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
What?
Can't hear you.
Put some closed captioning.
Hold on.
Girl, put your headphones on.
Hold on. You keep them entertained. I'll be back.
Carrie. It's true. She ghosting out here. Okay. So until she gets back, let's have some Mad Life chats, people. How's everybody doing? How's life? How's Halloween? Today's the start of Halloween. Anybody participating in any Halloween festivities? I'm expecting answers, people. Can't be talking to myself. I've been mad busy with all my schoolwork and actual work that I just finished this book today. I just heard about Halloween today, Greg. I figured that Sharanja was going to have technical difficulties because I don't know if people realize, but she kept cutting in and out. Oh, here she is. Hello, friend.
Hello, friend. I'm having IT issues today. Sorry.
Well,
Get me a new laptop for Christmas.
Phone a friend.
Phone a friend.
You know, because people like to say all the brown people are IT.
Shut up. What's wrong with you? Jerk. Okay, where were we?
I was talking to people. That's where we were. Well, that's where I was.
Halloween. Of course. Anika.
Yes.
So, next question. What did you think about Cassiopeia's relationship with Martin and how they both, even though they were both raised in the same household, they both have different perspectives about the world?
I feel like their relationship is very much of like jealousy, especially on Martine's part, because in the book it mentioned how like when they were younger they used to get along better, but then once Martine got expelled from school and he had to tell their grandfather how he felt ashamed, and he didn't even want to tell him because Cassiopeia was there. We had no choice. And then at that time, their grandfather had said, "Oh, I wish that she was a boy.
Yeah.
Then she's more dependable and whatever."
she has more like intellect or something. Like he said something along that lines. And I also feel
Also,
like
another factor is, especially in that culture and stuff, like indigenous is very looked down upon. Like if you're more European, like that's supposed to be like your higher status.
mhm,
So him hearing his mother and everything talk down upon her and her father for being Indian
mhm.
or more like indigenous, then it's like in that aspect too, he's basically groomed to not like her. He's groomed to feel like he's better than
And I
her.
also feel like, yeah, and it's also he comes from a wealthy household. He's the heir. So like he's already just like basically taught off the bat that he's better than a lot of people because of what he was born into.
Except it wouldn't have been like that because remember, they said that Cassiopeia's
Mhm,
mother was actually the favorite child and she was to get everything. But because she
mhm,
went with Cassiopeia's
mhm.
father, then she was basically um like
She was basically exiled from the family.
yeah. And then when she did come back, they weren't really part of the family. They were more the help.
Yeah, they were the help essentially. And but there's this concept of like forgiveness that's sort of like shown throughout the book. And it comes to a head near the end where I think Cassiopeia has the opportunity to take revenge on Martin, but she actually like pretty much said like giving Martin pain does nothing for me and what I want to do in my life. And I just think that just shows how much more mature she's gotten throughout the story, in the fact that like who who out of all of us would not want to take revenge upon someone who's hurt us in the past, right? It takes a really big person to sort of walk away from that. And I think in that way she also teaches Hunkame about the same thing, forgiveness, because throughout
Him
his
and his brother.
story he wants to take revenge upon his brother for locking him away, and he doesn't really do that at the end. I think it's like a beautiful concept.
It brings you back to when stories used to teach you a lesson.
Yeah,
The story
well,
teaches a lesson.
that's most fairy tales, though. Like most fairy tales always have a moral that's sort of written in, and this story is almost like a fairy tale. Like the way that she's written it, it's pretty much like a Mayan fairy
Yeah,
tale.
it's like folklore.
It's folklore, right? Which goes back to me saying, like, I think when we were little, a lot of the fairy tales that we learned were pretty much like, if we go off
Whitewash.
Disney, whitewashed or like very European centric.
Yeah.
So I wonder, like, it would be interesting to see fairy tales that were not coming from the same part of the world. Like it would be interesting if kids nowadays had access to different fairy tales, not just the same like Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, like those typical Disney-esque stories.
Which even like Disney they had the opportunity to tell a proper story, but they, as you said, whitewashed it. Like friggin' Pocahontas, for example. That story
Mhm.
is not how it played out.
Yeah, that's not how it played out at all. They basically made it acceptable for,
She was a lot younger.
yeah, like 12 or
She
13.
she didn't even like have a choice to go to England. She was raped. She had a child. She died young.
Mhm. But that's what you call the Disneyfication of a story, basically making it appropriate for white audiences.
I'm like ashamed to say Pocahontas was my favorite as a child, but like I don't regret that
No, you
because
shouldn't regret it.
as a kid, like Pocahontas was all that we had other than Jasmine that like looked anywhere remotely like us.
Mhm. And yeah, I think we just grabbed onto those characters because they look like us, but in a lot of ways the presentation of those stories was very toxic, but we didn't have the knowledge or the maturity to realize just how toxic they were. because we're not taught the true history of those type of characters back in school. Even like
That's
the
a whole story in itself.
Mm,
That's a whole next thing that I could talk about.
Listen, this story also kind of is a throwback to the origins of fairy tales. Like prior to Disney, most fairy tales were not that like happy-go-lucky. A lot of them involved violence, unhappy, like terrible endings, things happening, like grotesque things happening. And in this book, like I like that it doesn't dumb down the seriousness of some of these characters. Like you have Homecoming, who's like the god of death in the underworld. We're literally introduced to him in a box, like dismembered parts.
Well, just bones, right? It was just bones,
bones.
And then he like grew flesh and stuff, but
Yeah.
he was missing an ear, he was missing an eye, he was missing a finger, because all these things were taken from him, and he had to go and search for his missing body parts.
And there's another theme about human sacrifice in this book, wherein Baku Kame wants to restore the world to its previous order, where human sacrifices could be brought back and made normalized again. And I'm just thinking that, like, oh, you would never find that in like a fairy tale nowadays. Like, we wouldn't talk about beheading or like human sacrifices when you say fairy tale. Fairy tales are like Ugly Duckling, like simple things like that. But this is like fairy tales from another part of the world, basically.
Yeah. It's like, I guess too, nowadays a lot of people they like the happy-go-lucky because in their own personal lives they're seeing grotesque things. It's like their escape.
Yeah, that's fair though. Like people use not just like fairy tales, but like TV comedies, like movies as like a way of escapism.
My headphones just died.
Can you still hear?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of people use like different forms of entertainment as escapism though, right? It's just the way that we live right now. But just making something happy with like a happy ending doesn't necessarily translate into being the truth. Like go back to like the origins of fairy tales, like European fairy tales, just because like they're not that happy-go-lucky. Like I remember.
Can anyone hear her? I can't hear her.
Can you hear me? Maybe you're having the same issue now. One sec. Can you hear me?
The stream has the biggest technical difficulties.
Yes, it does today for the first time. So
okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, I did something. Hi, Miranda. I saw your comment above. I laughed. I love you. Okay, so Anika, what did you think about the ending?
Well, I told you, I felt that it was just. I feel like it wasn't the ending. I was just waiting for more. I'm like, but that's it.
It was a very abrupt ending, but I liked it because of
for the reader's interpretation.
It's up for the reader's interpretation. It's very open.
Oh wait.
Yeah. No, like it's very.
For example, the Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid, she doesn't get the prince. She ends up basically
she commits suicide.
Dying. Well, not suicide, but like she just becomes the foam on the top of the sea.
See, I read the part about her jumping off the sea and becoming foam as like her committing suicide and joining the afterlife. And just like another example would be like Snow White. I think this is Snow White, where the queen puts on like these red shoes at the end of the story and she dances to death, which as a child freaked me out. But okay.
Well, with Sleeping Beauty, she was raped in her sleep. She woke up having children.
Yes, Sun and Moon, I think. She had twins. Yeah. I like the level of of changing and editing that Disney did for these movies is like incredible.
The fact that they would even choose them to make as a film for little children.
Listen, I think these stories already existed in children's format, but by the time Disney got around to them, they just ran away with it. But yeah, going back to the book, I like the ending because of its openness, and I also like the fact that, like, spoiler alert, Hunkame and Cassiopeia don't end up together because he has to go back to the underworld, and she, as a living person, she needs to live out the rest of her life, right? Which is like what she wanted in the beginning. She wanted to have the ability to live out the rest of her life, and I thought like it was very beautiful.
That she had the option. She had the option to just like for him to become mortal and for them to whatever, but she chose not to.
Yeah, because she chose not to. That was her decision. And I think that just speaks to the overall like maturity of Cassiopeia. The fact that she went for the greater good of the world versus her own personal wants. But I do like the fact that like it ends with her driving off into the sunset, learning how to drive, and just starting the rest of her life. The only thing I really wish was spoken about, I want to know if she went back for her mom, because her mom is still at her grandfather's house.
Well, it's all up to you. You can finish a story. You can say
Yeah,
yes.
that's the open-ended thing. Mm-hmm. So do you think that this story could potentially spawn a sequel? And if you wanted it to be a sequel, do you still want it to be about Cassiopeia and Hunkame, or like some of the other characters in the story?
I mean, it would be interesting, even though I don't like him. It'd be interesting to hear a story about Martine.
Martin, like a redemption story.
Yeah.
I think I like that as an idea, but I also kind of want to see a prequel about the grandfather, just to see like that prequel about how he got Hunkame in the box. Like, how did he manage to get him in the chest? Like a whole little like short prequel story about that.
Yes, our prequel would work.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, did you like Cassiopeia's relationship with Mukame?
I loved it. Like, I'm a sucker for romance, so that really like drew me into the story. That's the reason why I kept reading. Possible. Like she probably wants the option to at least go back and write another story, like 10 years, 20 years down the line.
Did this book come out last year?
I think it was last year. Like I read online that she doesn't have the intention to write another one, but she's always open to it. So I think that the reason that she left it open was to have the option in the future to go back and write another story if she chose to.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Always leave options for yourself and your money.
Yeah. And yeah, and I think she doesn't really do series. Like she for the most part only does like one-offs, like one shots pretty much. I read her other book, Mexican Gothic. It was all over Bookstagram this month because it's like a scary themed read, and I think she has like a common theme in writing like strong female Latinx characters, whereas there's a lot of similarities between the main character in Mexican Gothic and
What is
Cassiopeia.
Mexican Gothic? Is it based on Dia la no something de la Muertes? Is it based on the Day of the Dead? Is that like around it?
No, it's not based on the Day of the Dead. It's
Because
more
that
about,
could be why it's getting popular because that's coming up.
I think, so in terms of similarities, it's very similar to like, I don't know if you've watched this on Netflix, but like the haunting of Bly Manor, where you get like this character who goes into this creepy old house, and this house is literally like imbued with so much history, but like violent history, and it sort of just comes alive as the story goes on. So this like she has like a good theme, like a good she has a good way of like showing like the setting. Like the settings in her stories always become a character on their own, which I feel is like a really good way to keep your readers hooked.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
If I had the book around me, I would have shown you the cover.
I swear, it's like you probably have it somewhere close by because you just
I
finished
do.
reading it.
I do. Yeah, I do. So this is the cover, and yeah, she knows how to pick a cover for her books. Like it's very beautiful.
Also, I'd like anybody who's watching right now, as well as anybody who is watching on replay, to go to Sharanja's Bookstagram and like the photo of her with that cover dressed up like that. Do it.
Yeah, that's the photo that sent me over 100 Instagram followers. Good job, Sharanja. Pat on the back.
I believe in you, and I believe in your Bookstagram growing.
Thank you, and I believe in you too. I appreciate your support and the support of our followers. I love you all. Namaste. Um, so Anika, like, how do you think this book like fits in with the overall theme that we're doing for our book club?
Like BIPOC books.
Yeah, BIPOC books.
I think it fits well because obviously we got Latinx author and characters, as well as like we want diversity in everything, right? So we don't just want something that's set right now.
Mm-hmm.
We need like different settings,
Different time
past,
periods.
future.
So I'm like a big fan of like historical period pieces, especially in
Yeah.
film. But recently I've been trying to find historical movies that are not just about Europeans, and the level of difficulty I've had to finding historical period pieces about POC that do
In
not have to
film
do,
or in books.
and actually it's easier to find things in books, but because it's so much harder to turn a story into a movie nowadays, it's harder to find a film that is historical but doesn't deal with slavery when it comes to POC.
Yeah, that's even though that being said, I'm still holding out that we're gonna get a Kindred movie
I feel like,
or like a TV show or something.
I mean, I think you might get it, but you never know. It's really hard. Even like the number one movie that you see about POC and it's historical, it's usually a slavery film. That's just the age that we live in now. But the number of like slavery films that are coming out, it's like slowly dying down.
Well, give it a few decades, and you're gonna find films about 2020 or whatever
Hmm.
Americans dealing with Trump
Americans
and
dealing
being
with
a
Trump.
BIPOC person dealing with Trump. That's definitely gonna be
You never know. I still feel like it's gonna be the other perspective.
what.
It's gonna be about a white Democratic person dealing with Trump. A person who probably doesn't even identify as like LGBT plus is just going to be about a Democratic person dealing with Trump, like a very basic story. No offense. Yeah. So I've been researching a lot of
Look at you, Sharanja. It's a great photo.
thank you, Sean. I've been researching historical films. I love you, Miranda. I love you so much, Miranda. Um, I've been researching historical films that don't necessarily deal with slavery, and I've been able to come up with a couple, but it's hard to find these type of stories. Whereas, like, I mean, like Latinx stories that are filmed and set prior to like the 1980s is, I think the first one that I actually ever watched was Roma, which was nominated for an Oscar, I think 1 or 2 years ago, and it was basically about like a house servant back in like the 1950s or 60s, and it's in black and white. It's a really good film, and it sort of plays into our whole theme about like finding stories from diverse voices.
Thing would be like if you find it, a lot of it is national film. But I think that like Hollywood needs to put the pressure on making those films so that it has like a wider demographic.
Mm-hmm. I think we just need to stop putting so much pressure on just like Hollywood films, and we should sort of like broadcast films from different countries as well, because sometimes these movies are being made in different countries, but they're not getting the same type of
certain people feel some types of ways about watching a movie that's not in their language. If reading subtitles is a big deal.
Yeah, so that was the whole thing with like Parasite last year too. Parasite was a great movie, but the thing is, a lot of people couldn't get over the fact that they had to read subtitles in order to in order to understand the movie. But that movie was incredible. It talks about so many different themes like classism, um, youth not being able to find work even though they're educated. Like it's so many different themes, but it was a well done movie, but a lot of people weren't attracted to it because of the fact that it's in Korean.
Some people just need to get out of their head, and I feel like it's kind of like racism, because they won't watch that, but they'll turn around and watch a movie completely with aliens and stuff with subtitles because they are not speaking an actual language.
Mm-hmm.
Or even these Star Trek type of people will go and learn Klingon and all these different other languages.
But you can't push yourself to learn a language that's actually real and spoken by people on this earth.
Or even bother to give these subtitled films and TV shows a chance.
This kind of fits into a story that I have. So I'm a big fan of The Lord of the Rings. Like I love those movies. And I think when filming for the first trilogy was done, yeah, if you watch anime, you should be able to read subtitles. Like it should be a non-issue.
And with reading subtitles on anime, like that's another. I don't understand. I don't understand how you read those so quickly.
You get used to it.
No, but I mean, like he can read that quickly, but then like in person, if you give him something to read,
it's because he's motivated to read it because he's watching an anime that he likes, but he's not motivated to read a book that he's not interested in.
No, I don't even mean a book. Like I mean, like even if you like give him your phone to show him like a meme or something, it feels like it's probably like he feels like on the spot, so he's like trying to rush to read it, and then like, he's missing stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna get the topic.
Then I was correct.
I'm gonna get the topic off of Gregory right now, and I'm gonna go back to my story.
Yes, your story.
So I love the Lord of the Rings movies. Yes. I love the Lord of the Rings movies, and I read a lot of like background stories when it came to like casting for those roles. So I read that when it came to casting like Hobbiton, like the background hobbits, the casting director wouldn't let this little Indian woman be a hobbit because he said that hobbits are not like, you don't look like a hobbit, because she was South Indian. And I'm like, what the heck does a hobbit look like? You guys are made up, right? So what does that mean? Like, it's made up. Anybody can be a hobbit.
That's like saying, let's say an alien somewhere is like, oh, we're gonna cast for humans, but like humans are only just like white people.
We'll definitely take a look at that, Miranda.
Wait,
Hollywood on Netflix.
I think I might have seen that show. Is it like with this white guy and then like he does sexual favors and different stuff to get into Hollywood? I think I started watching that. And like there's a lot of like gay stuff happening.
We'll take a look, Miranda. That sounds interesting. Yeah, and like back to casting for like the Lord of the Rings. The only actors who were of color in that movie were the people who played orcs. So they were like the monstrous villains in the movie, and they wore all this like caked up makeup, so you couldn't even really see their color. But they used primarily Samoan actors for that role, which I feel like okay, you're gonna have villains in this movie and have them be played by like the only people of color on the set. Okay, but that just goes back to the overall theme of what we're talking about when it goes back to our stories not being properly told.
That reminds me of Fire Nation.
I
That
didn't hear
reminds
you.
me of the whole Fire Nation thing.
Oh, that movie is hot garbage. So I feel like what Miranda is saying right now is just like the general story of like getting POC stories filmed. You have to fight to get things casted the way you want. Get things written the way you want, produced the way you want.
I remember that, like what she's talking about there. I have to finish the show though.
No, I'm gonna check it out. I haven't watched it at all, so. Anika, are you interested in reading more stories from this author?
I mean, I might read Mexican Gothic.
If you do, I got a copy I can lend you. I noticed that she primarily focuses on like writing Latinx characters. I think all of her stories have like a Latino main character.
Well, I mean, I think that's important, right? What you know.
Write what you know. But I feel like
I don't think that a non-POC person should be writing a POC.
even though that happens all the time, though, it's fairly common.
It happens all the time, but I don't really like it because what do you know about the experience? It like one of like the things that really irritates me because as you know, like I'm always looking for BIPOC things, like for children's books or whatever. So it annoys me when you are like looking at books and like on the cover it's a picture of a POC person, and then you just find out that like the author's white.
I mean, but that's been happening for like many, many years. Like the number of like LGBTQT plus stories or characters that are written by people who are straight, it's just like a very common practice.
But give the opportunity to the people who know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. I mean, don't you think that's a discussion that's happening today, though? Like people fighting for the right to tell their own story in media.
Exactly.
I remember,
Or like with the I love Miles Morales, but like both of his authors, like Bendis and then this what's his name? Is it Salomon something? The newest one. They're both not black or Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, like this latest one, he might be a person of color, but like you're not writing the story of that person, like of that group.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me that Marvel couldn't find any other black or Hispanic authors, any black or Hispanic writers to write this story?
Mm-hmm. One example I can think of is like the casting for Dallas Buyers Club. If you remember, there was a character who was trans in the story, and she played a big part. And instead of casting someone who was trans in real life, they went with Jared Leto. So they casted someone who isn't trans to play a trans character in this story. And there was a lot of criticism about that because Jared Leto's not trans, so how can he effectively bring to light some of the pain, some of the journey that this character goes through in the movie if he hasn't experienced it himself, right?
Well, a lot of people don't like Jared to begin with, so there's that.
And yeah, a lot of it was the fact that during his like award show rounds, he was describing the character he played as a creature, like this beautiful creature that I played, instead of like
A person.
a person. People took a lot of issue with the fact that he kept saying creature and not like a fully fledged person. She was a person.
Thanks for that recommendation, Miranda. And also, let me just put this out there. Y'all should follow Ainara's bookshelf on Instagram because she is the best.
Yeah. Her little videos are very cute and she's got a great personality. She's good Instagram.
Let me type it down here so you guys can. And she's the most adorablest cosplayer as well.
Jared Leto, he's a good singer. Don't get me wrong, but he's very weird when it comes to his acting roles. I think I liked him best when he was back in My So-Called Life.
I wonder if anybody will actually give him a chance again with acting, like to actually consider liking him.
Well, I think he's on a bit of a break right now. I think he's been on a break since the past few years, ever since like
Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad, yeah. So I haven't seen him in anything else, and I don't think he's touring anymore with his band. So we shall see. You never know. Anika, do you want to tell everyone what we're reading for our next book?
American-born Chinese. Oh, Morbius. That's right.
Yay! Not.
You're not looking forward to that?
I'm not looking forward to anything that has a minute, to be honest. It's not something I jump for joy whenever I be like, oh, a new Jared Leto movie's coming out. No.
Not excited for him. I mean, you're not excited for the movie.
I'm not. I don't really follow like Morbius like that. So we'll see.
Apparently, Black Widow is going to that premium stuff on Disney Plus.
Yeah, because how long are they gonna hold off on releasing it before people stop caring?
Like, it's ridiculous. And now I really want to see that movie Raya that comes out, but it's saying March. Is that actually going to come out in March if this one was supposed to come out since last March? And they
I
better
think
not
they're just.
do this Disney premium stuff.
I think most likely they are gonna release it in the same way they did Mulan, whereas they're gonna release it on Disney Plus. But you never know; things could improve by March. Like the theaters might be reopened, and people might be comfortable enough to go and watch a movie in a theater. So there's always hope. I'm looking forward to Raya too. That trailer was like got me going. People, so there's a there's criticism over the trailer because they're saying that it copied uh Avatar: The Last Airbender. Well,
So
they're saying that but it's not even that. It's the fact that like no, not Avatar, as in like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, okay.
So people are criticizing it for that, but they're both drawing from like Vietnamese, East Asian culture. So there's going to be similarities between both anyway. Yeah, I don't Yeah, I'm hoping, but we'll see. We'll see about that.
So yeah, they're saying that they copied Last Airbender.
Yeah, in terms of like aesthetic, clothing, style, like the character stylization, even just like the whole action theme. But
Okay, so that means that every other North American movie copies every other North American movie.
Yeah, but it also means that these shows just draw heavily from like East Asian cultures.
Yeah,
so there's going to be similarities. So not next week, our next book club discussion will be American Born Chinese. It's a graphic novel. It's by Jin Luen Yang, who I think he's writing the new Shang-Chi comics right now, like the 2020 Shang-Chi.
Yeah, like they're just restarted.
Yeah. So it's a really good graphic novel. It discusses racism towards Asians in America, and it's
I ordered it. I'm just waiting for it to arrive.
I initially read it in university. It was one of our English lit books, so it's gonna be fun going through it again.
I regret selling back all of my English books.
I don't regret selling some of my books. I know
I sold Watchmen back.
You read Watchmen for something?
For children's lit.
Watchmen is children's lit? No, it's not.
First year English.
Yeah, it would be. That's not a children's lit book.
First year English.
I don't regret selling my university English books. I know I'm not going to read those again.
You didn't have any good novels?
The only one that I liked was American Born Chinese, which is why I recommended it. But the rest, not really.
I had like Alice in Wonderland, no, Alice Through the Looking Glass, The Hobbit.
I already owned those. I didn't buy them for university. I already had them in my bookshelf.
Those are ones that I had and sold back. The life of a struggling student.
The life of a smart student who knows how to make money.
Yeah, but when you try and go and buy them back now, it's more money.
There's a thing called the library. Support your local libraries.
Franja, you know that I used to go to the library. I'd go to the school library every day, and then I'd go to the public library probably like at least 3 times a week.
I think the last time I went to a library was with you, and I don't remember. It was back in March, and I had those books for 3 months until the shutdown with the libraries.
Yes, I remember that.
Okay, I had enough time, more than enough time to read those books. I say let's let our viewers go. I want to say thank you everyone for joining in and always supporting us. I notice we have the same people every week, and it really means a lot that you guys tune in.
What's the date of the next book club?
2 weeks from now.
So November 8th.
Yeah, November 8th, and we're doing American Born Chinese. So that's gonna be a Sunday.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Catch y'all on the flip side. We see you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, you can see us on our Instagrams. Got Books Bounty 28. This way. Whichever way. That way. This way.
Or this way. Okay.
And Fresh Princess 92. So catch y'all later.